Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Isabella, and I am an intuitive empath and Reiki master and teacher. Welcome back, and welcome to all of the new viewers. So I really wasn't sure what I wanted to speak about today, but I kept getting the nudge. It's been a pretty interesting week, I have to say. It's been very interesting, and I have been going through this spiritual awakening, so I've been getting so many downloads, and I feel like my clairvoyance has become more developed. I hear a lot more clearer than I ever have. And this week has been, again, a very interesting week for me. I felt like it was kind of like a week of storytelling, right? A week of awakening to the truth in situations, seeing things differently. Perception is so different than it was before. Like I could just see through things so clearly, see what people are going through. And it makes me feel so bad for a lot of these people that are suffering through all of this stuff. But at the same time, it also helps me to see that a lot of people are starting to awaken as well. And they really are starting to question a lot of the things in their lives, the choices and decisions they've made. But again, for this week, it's been, Spirit has been showing me so many stories. As crazy as this sounds, fun kind of too, in a way. Interesting, very interesting. It started in the beginning of the week. And I was working on a client, and all of a sudden I heard this very clear male voice. It sounded like a narrator of a storytelling. It kind of reminded me of that series. What was it called? Damn it! Oh, jeez, I can't remember it. It'll come to me. It'll come to me eventually. Like that sci-fi, where it's narrated and people are. What the hell is the name of that? I cannot believe I can't remember. It'll come to me eventually. So anyway, so the voice that came through was kind of like that. It was like this clear, crisp voice. And the way that they were telling me this story was as if they were narrating a story to me very clearly. And I kept questioning the reason why. And I noticed every time I asked more questions, they gave me more information, and the story just grew and grew and grew. And it was on my mind this entire week. And it felt like it had to do really with the collective and humanity in itself. It was very interesting. But in the process of that going on, as I worked on individual clients, what Spirit kept showing me, which was so interesting, was they would pop into my consciousness a cartoon or a animated movie or a Disney movie, and it was a different Disney movie or animation for each client. And I feel like a lot of the stories that came up in their sessions was something that had to do with them. But then at the end of the week, as I revisited it over in my mind, it kind of all went hand in hand with the main clear story that Spirit told me. It was very interesting. So some of the animated stories, the Disney movies that kept showing up in my mind, in my consciousness as I was working on clients were movies like Aladdin and Peter Pan, and what were some of the other ones? The Fox and the Hound, Casper the Friendly Ghost, cartoon, Magilla Gorilla, a cartoon. I said Peter Pan, right? Aladdin, Peter Pan, The Fox and the Hound. There was a couple of different ones. I can't remember all of them. But at the end of the day, they pretty much all came down to the same thing. How we've been talking about for the past couple of videos, how people have created illusions and worn masks and have not been completely honest about who they are, and felt like they had to conform to fit in because of past conditioning and beliefs, experiences, choices, decisions that were made. And now, because everyone is coming into this awakened state, they're starting to recognize a lot of this stuff, and they're starting to question it. Because our eyes are being opened now to the truth. To the truth. Especially when we come to the point where we are actually standing in our power now and speaking our truth. I feel like as soon as we do that, it just shifts the energy in a whole. It just shifts completely. And when we can honestly speak our truth and stand in our power, that's when we start to see the truth for what it is. That's when we get to see through the illusions and through the masks that people hide behind. And you know, this was pretty deep. Like I said, it was a pretty deep week, and it even made me feel very frustrated at points too, because it's like when I see these clients suffering, unnecessarily suffering through mental conflict that they've created in their minds because of social standards, beliefs that have been imprinted in their being, limited beliefs, all of this stuff that's not even our stuff. And then they get to this point and they're struggling and they're so sad and they're so disconnected from themselves, and it hurts and it's upsetting and it's frustrating as hell. And like I said, you know, maybe in the past, yeah, I would have always, because I'm an empath, I've always felt sensitive about, you know, things and people and places, and, you know, and felt bad. But now it's like I actually can see the truth behind it and how false it really is. How made up it really is. How conditioned and programmed it really is. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. So it was an interesting, needless to say, an interesting week, but also a very, very deep, contemplating, introspective, yearning to want to know kind of week. Did that make any sense? I don't even know what I said. So again, I feel like this week has really been a continuation of what I have been speaking about in the last couple of videos, about how people, you know, are questioning and trying to become true to who they are, but not really knowing what to do, or not completely understanding why this is all happening. And again, it's because an old cycle is being closed and a new cycle is beginning. It's time for us to take back our power and be true to who we are, and not continue to create these illusions or wear these false masks because we feel like we have to fit in to society or not be accepted. So the story goes, and this is the story that was told to me during one of my sessions very clearly. I'm hoping that I can articulate it the way that I heard it, because you know it sounds all clear up in my head, but then when I try to articulate it kind of gets distorted. But hopefully the point will come across to you and you'll understand what it is that Spirit was telling me that I guess the collective needed to hear or needed to know. And this is not about judgment, so I don't want you to take this story and feel like you're being judged, because again, everyone is at a different place in their lives, at a different healing place in their lives. So we cannot judge people for maybe not going through a spiritual awakening or not becoming aware of a lot of the behaviors and patterns and things that are carried down from generation to generation. You know, and some people may feel comfortable in this way of being, in their way of being, in their existence. This is more about the people who have or are going through a spiritual awakening at this time. People who are starting to question their existence. People who are becoming more aware of what is going on with society and how they fit in as an individual. So it's not about judging anyone for the choices and decisions that they make, because some people, again, are okay the way that they are. They're okay living in the illusions. They're okay living in the mask. They're okay, you know, with that, and that's fine. You know, and that's fine. Again, this is more about the ones who are starting to question their existence. The ones who are becoming aware that there's something wrong with, I don't want to say wrong, but that is missing within themselves. The ones who are trying to really remember who they truly are. And we will get to that point at different points in our lives, depending on how far you have come, depending on how many lessons you've learned and how much you have become more aware of the experiences being lessons. So I don't want you to take this story and feel like you're being judged in any way, okay? So the story goes, and again, I'm going to try to articulate it as clearly as I can. And while I am shuffling cards, because I feel like I need to really be connected to Spirit, and when I'm shuffling my cards I really do feel more connected to Spirit energetically. So here we go. So the story goes like this. Once upon a time, a long time ago, in another time era, a village experienced a devastating time. The village was struck down by a plague. And this plague killed a lot of people, destroyed livestock, destroyed a lot of stuff and people in this village. What was shown to me, it was shown to me in black and white. And when I see black and white visions, usually that's a connection, a true connection to Spirit, completely connected to Spirit. So it was all shown to me in black and white. So this village, according to the story that I heard, was destroyed by this plague. A lot of people lost their lives. A lot of animals died. Crops were destroyed. A lot of devastation, a lot of despair, a lot of pain, a lot of suffering. They showed me animals that were struggling to survive, dogs that were all bones, that were malnourished, didn't eat, were looking for food. It was just falling apart. And as I'm seeing, as I'm telling you the story, I'm actually seeing it in my head. So I might have some pause moments, and I feel like Spirit just has opened up my crown chakra wide to really show me the picture. And hopefully, again, I'm articulating it well enough for you to understand. And you can see, whew, I'm feeling a lot of the pain and suffering right now. It's why I feel so weird right now. I can't explain it, but I'm fully connected to Spirit at this moment. So I feel like this is a story that happened in the past, and Spirit is using it to get a point across about society as a whole. Anyway, as the story continues, I'm sorry, I'm getting so much pressure in my third eye. As the story continues, they showed it to me in black and white. And as I stated before, when I see black and white, to me, that just stands for total connection to Spirit, truth, purity. No distortion, it's just pure. And again, I'm still trying to make head or tail of whether or not this is something that actually happened or something that is going to happen. But if they are talking about a long time ago, it's probably something that happened. Or maybe it's just a way of letting us see and understand certain situations. So again, they showed me animals that were dying. There was horses lying down dead on the ground. The dogs were actually eating whatever they can survive from. It showed, it was a bit dark. It's very dark. It's very dark. It's very scary. It's very, very sad. Pain. I can feel all of the torment that the people were going through. It was very poor. It was a very poor village to begin with. It was very poor from what I'm seeing. And people were already struggling to survive. And then when this plague came along, it wiped out so many of these villagers and people and animals, and destroyed their crops. So people were living in even worse poverty than when where they originally started. So as the story continues, and a couple days later, when the story was brought into my consciousness again, the country that Spirit told me it was Venezuela. So I feel like, bits and pieces are coming together, but it was a village in Venezuela that was very poor, that had been struck down by the plague, some kind of a plague that wiped humanity out of existence. But there was a few that survived. And even though those animals that they showed me that were still alive, they were really pretty much dying because there was no food to eat. So this is where the story gets more interesting. So, and I feel like Spirit was really trying to make a clear point. And again, this is not about judgment at all. This is about awareness, okay? This is about awareness of who you are and knowing that you have complete control over the choices and decisions that you make in your life, okay? And a lot of times we make those choices and decisions by programming and conditioning that we've gone through in our lives, that we feel this is the way it should be. myself before I go on a tangent here. Because I'm telling you, this really touched me. This really, really affected me on so many levels. This story, it really affected me on so many levels. And this week, just working with my clients and seeing the pain, truly seeing it for what it really was very overwhelming. So anyway, so this village was a village in Venezuela this happened a long time ago, as they were narrating, a long time ago, in another time era. And because of this devastation and this plague that took over the village, destroyed the village, the survivors started to break off into different, they started to show me different, spirit started to show me different groups of people. And like, this all comes together as humanity, you know, and the choices that we make in our lives, right? So the one group that they showed me that lived in this village that survived was a group that, although their village was destroyed and they lost loved ones and food and everything that they built for themselves was destroyed, this group of people took that experience and made it their strength. They took that experience, and rather than allowing it to hold them back, allowing them to become something that they're not, they took that devastation, they made it their strength, and they moved forward with it. Whether it was trying to make change or just moving away from it because it was just so badly ruined and corrupted now at this point, which takes me to the next group of people that they showed me, that Spirit showed me. So this group that took that experience and made it their strength took that experience to try to create change, positive change, or just took that experience and moved forward away from the corruption that developed now from this destruction and despair. The second group was created. And this group of people were the power mongrels that took that experience and used greed, power, control to control the people that were left surviving. They showed me so many horrible things that this group of people did to these people, how they took advantage of them. They used their power, the greed, and just completely took advantage of these people. So they used that experience to control. Not to help, but to control. And then there's the third group that they showed me. And this group was the group of people who took that experience and became it. They allowed that experience to define them. They couldn't get past all of the destruction, despair. And it made them weak. And they stayed in that destruction and despair and allowed this group that used the power, their power, to control them. These people had to conform to whatever this group of power mongrels, horrible people. You know, and there's different groups, you know, and I don't look at it. It's not about judgment, okay? And you have people who are in power that do amazing things for humanity. And then you have people that are in power that just take advantage of humanity. That create their own empires the way that they want it to be and make people conform to whatever it is that they expect. So like I said, there is people who are in power who are doing amazing things for humanity, but then there's people who are in power just take advantage of that. They take advantage of it and they use it to control and manipulate, like this group in Venezuela. They use that power to manipulate this group that remained there, suffering. They took advantage of these people. And those people stayed in that energy, couldn't move forward from it. So it was a very deep, emotional, serious, awakened type of story being shown to me and being told to me. You know, and I kept asking, like, why was that story told to me? Why was it shown to me? And I guess, you know, and I kept pondering it over and over, trying to make sense of it all. But it kind of makes sense. It really does have to do with humanity. It has to do with the choices and decisions that people make for themselves. Whether they choose to make change, which means changing themselves within themselves. That you have the power to change your outcome. You have the power to create whatever it is that you truly want to create by being true to yourself, right? It's all about illusions and masks that people wear that are unreal to try to conform to society. So that was the story, and like I said, it's still sitting in my consciousness. It was so heavy. It was really, really heavy. And like I said, I don't know if it was something that truly happened in Venezuela, or if it was just the spirit trying to make a point of, we have the control and the power to choose whatever is in alignment with our truth and who we are. That we don't always have to dim our light or conform. Yeah, we have laws and things that we have to follow, but it doesn't have to define who we are. Our experiences don't have to define who we are, which comes back to that village of one group let it define them by being small. Other group let it define them by taking control and manipulating. And the other group let it define them by allowing them to step into their own power to make the change that was necessary. Whether that meant change there or moving forward and taking it somewhere else and starting fresh and starting new. Because that was kind of the feeling that I was getting, was they moved on from that experience and they used it to create their strengths and create a better world for themselves, whatever way that looked for them. So it was heavy. So I don't know how that story resonates with all of you. I hope it resonates with you in some way. Which then led into, right after that revelation or story that was told to me, all of my sessions started to shift and change this week. So I felt like they started to continue. Spirit started with this really, really profound story, and then showed me aspects of other stories that were created. But those stories, which were these Disney stories and these animations and these cartoons, they weren't just for, as children, we're like, this is fun, we're entertained by it. But every one of those stories had a lesson in it. Every one of those stories, there was a moral to that story. And maybe while we were, watching it, or even as children, like I said, we were entertained by it. As adults, we probably don't look at a lot of that stuff that was really being shown in the story and teaching us something, right? So let's take one of the Disney stories that came through for one of my clients was Aladdin. So what did Aladdin represent, right? Again, if we connect it to what we've been talking about and what has actually been going on in the collective to date, right now, up to this point, it's about illusions and false masks, right? Aladdin pretending to be someone that he's truly not, wearing a false mask to be accepted and to fit in. And his lesson was to learn that you need to be true to yourself. Because when you are true to yourself and you stand in your power, everything falls into place, right? Yeah, we can create an illusion and a fake world and feel okay in that. And like I said, it's not about judgment, really. Again, this is for the people who are questioning and becoming aware of why things were done, why choices were made, why decisions were made on their part. People who are feeling very disconnected from themselves. They want to remember. You want to remember who you are. And all of those experiences and lessons were teaching us that, right? And the moral in all of these stories, or I should say, the one thing that most of these stories had in it was what? Finding love. Finding love. They were all about love. And the lesson in itself was the love is going to come from you. Speaking your truth and being true to who you really are. Not trying to fit in to illusions that were created by others. Aladdin wore a mask, pretended to be someone he wasn't for a very long time, until he learned that lesson, right? Peter Pan was representation of staying connected to your inner child. Being true to who you are. And that it's okay to be carefree and connect to that inner child. And Netherlands represents illusions, right? Fakeness. Not real. Which is half of the things that are created in the world. Not really real. It may seem real, but it's really not real. But again, it's staying true to yourself. Standing in your power, speaking your truth. Being connected to self. Captain Hook, too, when I think of it too, actually was a representation of karma, right? Bad karma. Remember how we talked about positive karma and negative karma? Captain Hook abused his power and tried to control and manipulate. Here we go again. So I'm saying, like, all of these stories have this, mean the same thing. They're telling us the same thing. At some point, all of those illusions, all of this greed and the manipulation and all of this stuff that people take advantage of in others, there's going to be consequences for those actions at some point, right? So Peter Pan, Aladdin was another one. The Fox and the Hound also came up for one of my clients, and I couldn't really understand that. And again, I haven't watched these movies in so long, so I don't even know what they were about anymore. But what I'm getting, what I'm being shown and told, is they really have a lot of meaning. There's a lot of lessons in these stories, and they're all kind of centered around the same lesson, right? And when it comes down to it, it's about being true to who you are, not creating an illusion or wearing a false mask, but being completely true to who you are. You know, they show you scenarios in these movies where we're trying to fit in. We're trying to be accepted, right? With the Fox and the Hound, it's like when you're children, you're innocent, right? You don't see black and white. You don't see faults. You don't see one being better than the other, right? We're innocent. We're pure innocence. It's not until we start to grow up that things change. The programming, the things that we're shown, the things that we're told, the illusions that are created, the way that we're programmed, change that innocence into now trying to fit in to society. But at the end of the day, when we come to this point that most people are at now, where we're becoming awakened, it's like, I just want to get back to that innocence, that pure innocence of who I really was, right? Not trying to fit in. So with the Fox and the Hound, if I remember correctly, is that they were good friends when they were young. They played together, they did all kinds of things together. It wasn't until they got older that all of a sudden they were told they had to, there's the difference now, the fox and the hound. The hound's supposed to hunt the fox and kill the fox, right? That's what society tells us. You're not supposed to be friends with the fox. And the hound and the fox and the hound are not supposed to be friends. They're supposed to be enemies. Why? Right? Why can't we all just get along? I know, sorry about that. But it's true. Like, we have to accept people for their differences. Why do we have to conform to, okay, you're telling me I have to kill my best friend that I grew up with? You know, I'm just saying, you know, with the fox and the hound. It's like, I have to, why? We were best friends. And of course, at the end, you know, they see the truth in this situation. If I remember correctly, right? And they became friends once again because they seen the difference and how fake it was and how it was just something that someone else said they had to do, right? You know, it's like, you know, and this came up into my consciousness the other day too. So one of my past lives was, I was a young African boy in Kenya and belonged to the Maasai tribe. But the way that I died in this past life is that I was killed by a lion. So it's about coming of age. So a lot of cultural beliefs or whatever back then, I guess, maybe, well, not to the, I don't think they do it so much now. Back then, you had to prove your manhood, right? And most of the children had to prove their manhood at a young age, like 13, 14, right? Whatever it was. You had to prove your manhood by going into the jungle, wilderness, whatever. In my case, it's jungle. And I had to kill a lion to prove that I was a man. And in the process, I got killed by the lion, right? Why did I have to kill a lion to prove my manhood? Why? Why can't I just build a hut? Right? So it's like we're forced to do these things that really aren't even who we are, you know? Again, it's just, I guess, experiences. We're supposed to learn something from it. I don't know. So back to my stories for this week. Probably have you confused as hell at this point, right? Oh my goodness, it's so interesting. I tell you though, it was very interesting, I have to say. It's like it really woke me up and helped me really see really see clearly, the perceive things so differently. Right? So what was the other one that came up? A Casper the Friendly Ghost. So what did that represent to me? Okay, and like I said, each one of these stories that came up in the sessions were connected to the person in some way of how they felt about themselves or something that they were going through. And it was just kind of like I would tell them, okay, you have to watch this movie, go read it or whatever, or find out what the moral of it is, because there's a message in this for you, obviously. But as a whole, as I'm going through this now and revisiting these visions, they all make sense. They all go hand in hand with the main story that Spirit told me about how people let circumstances and society and things define who they are, right? So with Casper the Friendly Ghost, I guess you could look at it a couple of different ways. I'm going to tell you the way I look at it. So it's kind of like ghosts, right? The norm of what people look at it is it's evil, it's dark, it's bad, right? So Casper, who was very different than the other ghosts, who went around scaring people. Again, wow, control. Right? Control. Wow, okay. That kind of goes together. Power. They're using their fright skills to control people, scare people, create fear, right? Just like the people in the village of Venezuela in Venezuela that they show me, they used, that second group of people used their power to manipulate and create fear amongst the remaining villagers who were already suffering in the experience of all that they lost, right? I prey on the weak. It's pretty sad. But anyway, Casper was friendly. He couldn't be mean. He didn't want to scare people. I mean, he could have if he wanted to, but he would do it kind of just to fit in a sense, right? Wow. As I'm talking about this, like, all of this stuff is coming together and it makes so much sense. It's like all the same. It's all the same. It's trying to be someone that we're really not. And when we are trying to be someone that we're not happy. We're not happy. We become lost. And again, this is about the people who are at this state right now of moving into a new cycle and releasing an old cycle. And that means old beliefs and patterns and conditioning that was carried down from ancestor to ancestor, that was embedded into our cell memory. We're at a time now where we want to change that. And maybe that's why these stories came so strong, because there's a group of people that are trying to create positive change in the world. And I feel strongly that our young generation are the ones who are going to create the new world. Why? Because they are being born awakened. They're old souls. They just need to be guided. And be taught that it's okay to be themselves. It's okay to connect to their old soul and their gifts and all of the things that they're supposed to bring to the world, So Casper the Friendly Ghost. Casper couldn't be mean. But then you look at it another way. And you could look at it this way too. If I don't scare these people, I'm not going to fit in. So then I start to feel invisible because no one really understands me. People dim their lights. They become invisible because they feel like if they show who they truly are, they won't be accepted for that. Wow. Okay then. I like Casper Friendly Ghost. So again, all of these stories now, when I think about them that came through in these sessions, really do go hand in hand. And it's all about just being real, being true to who you are, becoming aware of the false masks that people wear and the illusions that are created, to start to gain a mental clarity and look at things with a different perspective. You know, so there's definitely a lesson to every one of those stories. There's a moral to every one of those stories. It's just how we perceive it. And that usually comes with where we are at the time that it's presented to us, right? Which, like I said, I feel like a lot of people now are starting to see that. You know, they're starting to see that there's got to be more to life than this. And they're taking the steps. It really starts with you first. You know, when you can stand in your own power and feel good about yourself, now you're at a place where now you can spread that out to the collective, to the universe, to the planet, to humanity, right? All of these things that you learned and experienced, now you have something to teach someone else. But you have to be at a complete state of alignment with yourself. And that is the transformation that most of us are going through now, right? Understanding things for what they truly are. Understanding who we truly are. And that we don't need to be something that we are not. That stuff was just carried down and embedded in our cell memory. It's not really who we are. Why is it not who we are? Because we're not happy. We feel disconnected. Why do we feel disconnected and unhappy? Because we're not being ourselves. We're being what everybody else wants us to be. Right? What was the other stories? Was there any other stories? I know there was a few. I just can't remember them all right now. The one that really, like I said, that stands out the most, and is not a fairy tale or a Disney movie. It was what Spirit told me clearly, and that really had to do with humanity and how there was different types of groups of people and what you choose to do with those experiences that you go through. Right? So I hope that was entertaining, but very profound, I'm sure, because it was for me. It was really deep. It was really deep. It was really intense, all of that. Right? Okay, so I'm going to just pull a card. I'm going to pull two cards, and then we're going to end this session, all right? I don't know where I was going with all this, but I hope that it made sense to you. I guess in a sense, yeah, it is, where it's just understanding that we're feeling the way that we're feeling because we're awakening. We're going through a spiritual awakening. We're trying to connect with who we are, you know? You have to be true to yourself. What makes you happy? You know, in a lot of the sessions too, it's always like, well, I have to do this to be accepted by that or them. You know, like maybe someone lives in a environment where there's a lot of money, you know, materialistic stuff, but it doesn't make them happy. They just stay with it and stay in it because it's it's expected, right? It's like they have to put on these false masks to fit in to that society, you know, when all they want to do is go work in Home Depot and help people create the homes of their dreams, because that makes them happy. Not the millions of dollars that they have, or the beautiful homes and cars and things that they have. You know, they're so afraid of going to Home Depot. You know, I'm just saying. And doing that because they're in this environment where it would be looked down at if they did that. You know, what? You want to do that? Why? You got all of this. But does it make you happy? Not really. And like I said, you can have all of that and be happy as hell. You know? Yeah, of course. You're going to be happy, right? But it's how you feel about yourself at the end of the day, whether you have a lot or you don't. You know? Look at the story in Venezuela. Those people who lost everything. That group of people, but they took that and made that their strength. They didn't let that define them. They didn't let the power mongrels and the, you know, manipulative group control them. They stayed true to themselves, regardless of what they went through. Right? So, at the end of the day, this journey is about you. And your experiences, no one else's. Your experiences. What you learned from those experiences. How you've grown. How you are creating a better version of who you are. Right? Oh my goodness. Sorry. Ooh, okay. Alright, I don't know why these cars are being a little stiff. What I'm noticing too, so a lot of things are shifting for me now. So more information, more information is coming through for me. So I just kind of express it as it is, and it'll resonate with some of you, and some of you will not resonate with it, and that's okay. That's okay. It's not meant for you to hear. You know, just take what resonates with you and go with that. But what I'm finding is, like I said, I'm changing in a lot of different ways. I'm becoming more clairvoyant. It's adding a lot to my sessions and guiding people more so. So I am going to be creating a new type of session in the very near future. And also what happens is that I am also very much, I also channel songs that come through, or I'll be shown a synchronicity of a song will show a sign. I'll get a sign of a song, and it usually has something to do with, you know, something somebody needs to hear, or a lot of times it's to do with the collective, you know, because a lot of us are all going through the same stuff, you know, as a collective. Now I don't know what this song is, but what I hear is it's kind of a humanitarian type of song, and I guess it goes hand in hand with this whole video. It's called "We Are the World." We are the world. I'm not sure who sings it. I think a bunch of people sing it. I think it's like a group of people working together. But it's called "We Are the World." So that's the song for this video. I will, of course, what I'll do is I will look for that song and I will add it to my playlist. So you can go to my playlist. I keep adding songs that are channeled to me. It can be songs that are channeled and signs of songs that come through pertaining to a video that I recorded. So I will look it up and I will place it in my playlist. All right, so let's get back to pulling one more card, because I haven't pulled any cards yet, from the Work Your Light Oracle card deck. This is a beautiful, beautiful deck. I love this. This is a gorgeous deck. So let's see what it has for us. What does it have for us? What is the message for the collective spirit? What do they need to know? What do they need to know? Well, my camera died, so I got cut off in the middle of what I was saying about Dennis the Menace. And, you know, Dennis the Menace represents innocence and just doing what Dennis does, right? You know what? I don't know what keeps popping up into my mind is too. It's like kids that do that kind of stuff will immediately be classified as ADD. And they try to put them on medication. Oh, I don't know why. Whatever. Anyway, a card did pop out finally. And it actually goes hand in hand with what we've been talking about. It is Unbound, releasing soul patterns, contracts, and past lives. Wow, look at that. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about that, right? All the things that we carry down from generation to generation. From generation to generation. So it is time to release old soul stories that have been playing out in your life. They are coming up to be healed. There has never been a safer time to clear these patterns than right now. Take a look at patterns in your life that you are ready to release. Ancient vows and contracts that your soul made that have an expiry date. It could be a vow of silence or chastity or poverty. Wow. That's interesting, right? All of these stories that are connected. It is time to unwind from them. This is a life in which you free yourself from trauma of lives past. Do you see? And this is what's happening. And that's why so many of us who are becoming spiritually awakened are starting to question things about ourselves, you know, and what our true existence here is, that are ready to release the past. Needed to express it. And all of the past patterns and conditionings that were put on us, that are really not us. This life is life in which you free yourself from trauma of lives past. What old ways of being have an expiry date? When you name them, you claim them, and they stop holding power over you, right? When acknowledging these old patterns, it is also important to acknowledge how they have served you up until now. For example, a soul pattern of playing small caused by a soul's fear of being seen or sharing your voice would have served you by keeping you safe. In order to grow, you now need to soften by receiving and calling in support. It is time to unbind from the old ways of being that are no longer sustainable. Wow. Look at that. In order to move forward in this new cycle, we have to release all of that old stuff. Here's an affirmation that you can say to yourself. I release all old soul stories, vows, contracts, and patterns that are no longer aligned with who I came here to be in the present time. I carry the lessons, growth, and gifts, but I no longer choose to live the same story. May I be unbound, forever unbound. Recite that, and allow your consciousness to hear it. It will help you to release a lot of that stuff. You can do it during meditation or just sitting in silence and saying it. Anyway, I'm just going to pull one more and then I am going to end it for the day. I'm a little tired. This new moon energy has really exhausted me. I feel really tired. It's like I want to go home and go to sleep. I do. I want to go home and go to sleep. And I think I will. So my throat is needing to be cleared. So I'm transmuting. Some of you are not expressing. There's something that you're not expressing. You need to express it. It'll set you free. Alright, what's the affirmation? I'm a little wiped out right now. Sorry about that. This energy is really taking a toll on me. Okay, Spirit, what do you want the collective to know? What is the message? What is the affirmation for the collective? The world needs your smile. So, go ahead and flaunt it. The world needs you guys. This new awakening, this spiritual awakening, this new understanding, this new awareness of who we are and what we've gone through is going to help the world to learn. Shine your light, shine it bright. All right. Have an amazing, amazing weekend. Here's another one I just wanted to pop out, so I need to show you this one too. You see that? I trust, I believe. Therefore, I succeed. When you believe in yourself and you start standing in your power and speaking your truth, speaking and living your truth, you're succeeding. So everyone have an amazing weekend. I will